Well, welcome back to Reimagine. Here we are again in 2021, our second conference for the year so far, and so much to talk about. It would have been very unfortunate if 2021 had started off boring for the crypto space, but fortunately, we have no such concerns here. This has been a dramatic year, already, at the end of the second month, and so much has gone on, so much development. And that's why here at Reimagine, we want to take a little bit of a look at this moment, check it in relation to history, give it that sense of scope that it really deserves. And we're bringing on those into the conversation that are part of that sense of scope, who can understand and help us break down a little bit of what that really means. So without further ado, without me carrying on too long, I'll introduce our guest for today. We're speaking with Sean Rolland, Director of Product over at BitPay. Sean, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, good to be here, Asher. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, Sean, BitPay, you guys are, let's say, old hands in the space, been around since 2011. It's certainly, you can call yourselves OGs. But I want to delve a little bit into the human story here, because that's something else that we like to do for a moment. So, Sean, just for those who aren't familiar, give us a little bit of your personal journey into the crypto space. How your sort of evolution has occurred over the time you've been there, and where you feel you're at now.
Yeah, sure. So in a prior life, pre-crypto, as we call it, I was involved in a lot of different fintech companies called Cabbage, small business lending. And it really demonstrated like the power of technology and applying it to different financial situations, how much it's going to explode. So you start reading about different innovations that happen, and suddenly, Bitcoin popped up in probably, late 2015, probably for me, early 2016. And of course, the bug immediately bites. You start reading it, you're like, whoa, this is a rabbit hole. And most everyone who hears about it goes down that rabbit hole. And I knew after probably about a year or two, I was like, I have to work in this industry, not just in the evenings, but I want my full day focused on this and how big it's going to be. So I started at BitPay a tad over 3 years ago. We're a smaller 30-person shop now. We're above 80, 90 employees now. And a lot has changed, let alone since 2011 when BitPay started. But that 3 years, it's a very different company, very different market, very different focuses.
Certainly, it is a different market and focus, and I think that's one thing that I've loved watching in the evolution of BitPay as a company. The way that it started out as a company to help facilitate the payments in crypto space, and now seems to have developed so much more beyond that to the idea of actually receiving payments, but also giving out payments and facilitating those mechanisms for companies who want to do that. And we're seeing, efforts like that roll across from not just inside the sort of traditional crypto space, but as well as outside, with proponents such as, Russell Okung of the NFL coming out and saying he wants to get paid in Bitcoin. People are now, organizing their payroll in crypto. People are now organizing, so many of their daily payments in crypto. Tell me a little bit about that evolution, how that's felt from inside the company, but also, and maybe we can add this on as a larger question after, but into the crypto space as a whole.
Yeah. So one of the founding principles and ideas that BitPay was started with is that at some point, all assets will be issued on a blockchain, globally. And payments is such a large part of that theory. So it's like, hey, yes, we can do an exchange, you trade back and forth, but how do we really bring that bridge into real world goods and services? How do we get merchants and enterprises involved with that? And so payments is in my belief, especially is a really big necessity for driving the market forward, and continues to be. So, and the cool thing, especially in the past 2 years, is kind of the people talking about, I want to get paid in this. I don't want to just have to convert my fiat currency into crypto. I want to receive it in a totally different way. Honestly, you didn't really see that much except deep inside the crypto community. You see people outside who are now wanting this. And the cool thing about crypto, and something that BitPay is specifically working on, is how do we do that at scale, like globally? How do we allow people get paid in crypto. It's not even just Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And I think that talks about the evolutionary side, where so many years it was Bitcoin, 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 and rightfully so, the king of all the cryptos. But now there's so many of them with a lot of different use cases, really giving users globally and people globally the choice of, hey, what asset do I want to get, like, receive value in for my work? And for businesses, like, hey, once I have this asset, what can I do with it? Like, do I want to pay people with it? Do I want to use it as maybe a unit of account? Is it for treasury management? Different cryptos can be utilized for different purposes. So that's been a really big evolutionary change, is just like which asset to use, and then really starting to bring full circle the whole monetary ecosystem of people receiving payments, paying for goods, businesses paying businesses. And when that circular economy starts happening is when the real network effects start taking off.
Right. And I love the fact that you brought that up, Sean, because that to me is such a maturing of the space, that idea that we're moving beyond, and I don't want to accuse it of being two-dimensional, because Bitcoin is a tool of, 1,000 uses and beyond. But, there was a fixation, a focus for so many years on Bitcoin as a sole vehicle of, the development of the crypto and blockchain world. And now it seems so beyond it, whether we're talking about stable coins, whether we're talking about NFTs, whether we're talking about, the myriad of other altcoins out there that provide a range of different services, as some or other would agree to better or ill. But regardless, there's a wealth of options out there. Again, looking at that sort of grand scope, that maturity, that development, are there trends that you see, in taking that to a fully, blockchain enclosed ecosystem? Do you see that maturing space in institutional markets, perhaps? Or do you think, things are running a little ahead of themselves and there's still more development that needs to be done?
Yeah. And so on the institutional side, and I'll talk to that side as well as like the enterprise
Please.
and businesses and whatnot, because that's honestly been very recently developed. Everyone knows about Tesla and MicroStrategy, Mass Mutual, many different. I think recently Square, of course. All these, and that's such a different narrative than it was any time in the past. And what you still see, though, is the narrative around Bitcoin. And when I think of enterprises and large institutions, there's going to be two main narratives for this year and the coming future. It's going to be Bitcoin and stable coins. Bitcoin's great. It's an inflationary hedge. It's great thinking about treasury management. But honestly, one of the advantages of blockchain payments, again, is that low friction, the speed, instant settlement. And a lot of times, look, Bitcoin is volatile, clearly. We all know that. When using it as a unit of account for your business, you can't have that volatile of a currency. Again, it serves its purpose, treasury management, different things like that, inflationary hedge as a strategy. But I think stablecoins really will come up and be a big part of that conversation, is how do I do cross-border payments? How do I do remittances? Those are going to be big themes and BitPay continues to see, because you're not exposed to that volatility. You can still access all the benefits of blockchain payments. So again, enterprise, large institutions, Bitcoin and stable coins are going to be two of the growing narratives. And that's really changed from the past.
It certainly has changed from the past. And I guess it raises interesting questions. You've touched on the enterprise and institution there, but I want to bring it up to the government and the regulatory level, because I think that there's such an interesting conversation developing there, where on the one hand, you've got the likes of, Janet Yellen coming out and saying Bitcoin is, what was the quote, extremely inefficient as a way of conducting transactions. And I guess you've got, others on the other side sort of saying that they think that there is space for the blockchain world and the market there. And I think, you touched on stable coins there as a potential sort of balancing act and a way of maybe streamlining some of the potential inefficiencies of a blockchain or a crypto market. But do you think we get to that point of blockchain development being recognized by regulators, being taken on by regulators, and I guess becoming an efficient market that everyone can use for, whether we talk about remittances or whether we talk about payroll or any of these particular services?
I do. And I mean, there's a lot of different angles you kind of can take that line of thinking. I mean, yes, Janet Yellen is saying that, and she's talking probably specifically right now about Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum and the fees and maybe the energy that they talk about for mining, et cetera. But then you have, the Fed and a lot of other government organizations around the world that are talking about these central bank digital currencies. Those are digital dollars. And whatever, and the thing that'll be interesting to see is what flavor do they take on those? Are they launched on a public decentralized blockchain like Ethereum? Is it a private blockchain, if such a thing exists? But regardless, these technologies are going to come globally. Having a digital economy, a native currency of the internet, it might be high friction if you look at specific aspects of it now. We're inefficient, but look, we're still 10 years young. I mean, you look how long, the Fed wiring and ACH and how long that's been around. And cash, I guarantee you can call cash an efficient means of moving money, and it's a huge economy. But on this stuff, we can scale, we can innovate, we can build on that technology, scaling solutions, different governance models, excuse me. So look, it's just the beginning. Maybe right now what she says is partially true, but we're in the first inning. And I think over time, you're going to really see these things be extremely efficient, low cost, fast, used across all different, government and regulatory layers.
So it's an interesting point there. And, while I'm personally very inclined to agree with you, the inefficiencies still need to be streamlined. We're still in a nascent market. There's still so much space to grow. You can't give a market that's 10 to 12 years, depending on how you think of those early days of age, and sort of, and consider that it's a real, it's a real sort of developed, mature space yet. Just fidelity takes time. We all recognize that. But at the same time, this isn't the internet in the sense of, in the early days of the internet, it was passing information, emails. We were developing this out. This is people's money. This is people's finance. This is, the conversion of people's labor, whatever, however you want to think about it. This is something that people have a very low tolerance threshold for screw ups. So I wonder, as we know, the best technologies in the world don't always float to the top. Sometimes it's a matter of what gets adopted and what doesn't. I mean, do you worry, and again, I'm sort of pulling in the grand scope of history here, but do you worry that, crypto markets might lose their chance if there's one or two major screw-ups once we bring that next ray of people on board?
I don't. Again, thinking long-term, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, I am a big believer and proponent of it's not going away. And you see what tests Bitcoin has been put up against. Ethereum's got some big ones ahead of it. And I reference those two as the two largest, most clear ones. It's been put up against some serious tests and transaction load with a lot of money. Look, $1.5 trillion. Is that the total market cap? That's a lot of value and look, you have, that contains a lot of it, but Bitcoin itself, $1 trillion market cap.
Right.
We've already crossed, in my opinion, a threshold of people's tolerance that has been met. The likelihood of these different attacks and these different risks to the networks, are so low and might happen on certain scales. But that's the beauty of technology and innovation and where we're going, and why this is so cool with the money is we can make it better over and over and over. It's hard to make cash better. It's hard to make, you can make ACH and different things like that, money movements a little bit better, but with this programmable money, this blockchain work, you can continue to improve upon it. And maybe you might lose a modicum of trust a little bit, but you keep improving and making it better. And that's how all these institutions are built. So no, I don't have that worry long-term. Will there be blips in the road? I'm sure there will be, as there have been, but long-term, no worries.
Yeah, certainly. Perfection is the enemy of good, as I like to say. There will be problems, there will be issues, but that doesn't mean we can't innovate. But so then, all right, Sean, we're getting this new wave on board, and I like the way you put it, that we've hit a threshold, right? We've crossed that threshold of getting that next wave. We've gotten people on board. No matter what happens from here, whether we see, the market continue its huge bull run hype, whether we flatline, whether we tank for in the short term, whatever it may be, these new players are on board. People are aware. Anyone in the crypto space knows that there are suddenly a dozen new people, if not more, having conversations with you, from your grandmother to your whomever, being like, "What's this?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Why am I reading about this now? Should I be investing?" Da, da, da. So I guess then I wonder, and you can speak to this personally or in terms of BitPay, where do you see the catch points? Where are you guys looking out, or where are you personally looking out to we've piqued interest. How are we keeping people on board? What are you innovating towards? What are sort of the big developments?
Yeah. So at BitPay, at least, we think about it in two ways. Of course, there's the merchants, the businesses that are accepting that cryptocurrency as a form of payment. And then there are the consumers or the payers, which could be businesses also, that need to go pay. And again, I talked earlier about that circular economy, and the more people that ask about it, my grandma, my cousin, my doctor that might ask me about it, and they're like, maybe I should hold some, maybe I should be able to interact with it, and hey, maybe I want to get paid in it. Oh wait, I can make a payment to this merchant in it. The more that you get people who, of course, seeing it as a store of value is a great first step, because then you have it, but then you start going down again that kind of rabbit hole of, I can use this for everything. So what we really try and do at BitPay is, again, really build up that circular economy through, hey, we're going to be releasing it's called BitPay Send. It's live, and we're going to be improving on it. How do companies globally pay their workers all around the world? How do we get more crypto in more people's hands? How do we get more merchants and enterprises to accept that cryptocurrency, and not even that, like all the different types of crypto from all the different wallets that are out there and all the different places that users store their assets. So that's the stuff that BitPay is going to be innovating on. Again, is making it really easy, very safe, very clear for businesses and users to transact in it, not just hold it like in their vault, which is a first step. I think some interesting stuff is going to be, of course, this decentralized finance. How does that play into payments? Anyone with an internet connection can go on and make loans and receive loans. And that's a big part of payment ecosystems also. But really, again, continuing to focus on our original mission of making it a great user experience, secure, compliant for businesses and enterprises. I mean, you can pay your bills to AT&T, huge, multinational telecom. And making them comfortable with that, that's what we're going to continue to innovate on. And that's really our continued mission, and has been. And it's just great seeing more people come in and more institutions and businesses understand that and take that first step.
And that you're speaking about, and that user experience and user engagement level, that's so critical. I still remember back in, my first brush with crypto and with Bitcoin back in about 2012. I had a housemate at the time, or a good friend, who enjoyed, using Bitcoin for purposes we don't need to go into here, what people might have used Bitcoin for in 2012. But regardless, and he always said, I remember him talking me through the process, and he's wiring money off to this strange bank account and, receiving it in return. And it's all there's a few days lag here. And, we're talking very early days here, of course. And here we are, at this point where we're trying to get it to the point that it's a click of a button. It's as easy as we can possibly try and make that experience. And obviously it's companies like BitPay that have led that sort of innovation. But have we crossed that threshold yet? I mean, and do we need to, when I look at the sort of the cost of usership, compared to, say, a bank account, or, the systems which, all right, in and of themselves might not be the most efficient in the world, but they're established, they exist, they interact everywhere. The SWIFT system works all across the world. ACH system, it may be cumbersome and slow, but it exists and it's functional. Everyone knows how to use and accept it. Where's the threshold?
I mean, I don't think I have an exact whether number for you or number of transactions, like the threshold.
I wanted a date, Sean. I was waiting for you to come back at me with a no. Of course.
March 5th, 2027 at 12:02. There you go.
All right, there we go. Hold in your books, everyone. Someone write that down.
But really, in terms of, I think the ease of use really comes back to that network effect. When that ecosystem really, the loop starts closing, is when businesses are like, all right, I'm accepting as a form of payment. Maybe I'm not going to cash it out into ACH and have to use the wire system. And it, in traditional legacy systems is where, all right, well, I'm holding this crypto. How do I maybe exchange it for stable coins instantly and just hold it in, hold it in maybe a custodial or non-custodial wallet. And then when I want to pay users or my employees, then I can instantly and very quickly move between the assets that they want. And look, with fees, I think, fees is going to have to continue to be addressed. I think everyone's very clear on that, and it's going to happen. Right now, fees usually mean more decentralization, at least on some networks. And there's a lot of different networks trying to tackle that. But you're going to have better fees, continued very quick times, very secure. And I just think really there's going to be some tipping point where a business starts going, wait, instead of going immediately back into US dollars, I'm going to stay in crypto and I'm going to pay my employees in it. And then the employees are like, wait, it costs all this money to move back and forth between dollars. I'm going to stay in crypto and I'm going to buy other stuff with it. So it's just going to be and I really do think businesses and merchants and enterprises are going to be what drive that. Networks, it's a master gaming into it, PayPal getting into it. Because when businesses and small businesses, especially, I know the heart and soul of the U.S. economy, especially, really embrace that. It paves the way, same as other past payment systems.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that sense of that stable coin development, I think, is so critical and often by some that are new to the space underappreciated. That ability to just stay securely and stably in the crypto network, not have to cash in and out, is so absolutely valuable. But then I wonder, this is a conversation I have with so many people, but I'm interested to hear your views here. With so many different options, so many different networks out there, so many different projects being developed, amazing innovation, of course, incredible stuff. But at some point, as with anything, going back to that internet analogy, eventually the operating systems of the internet had to be sort of, centralized. There had to be that nexus point where people decided, okay, we're all accepting this as the standard and moving forward. Does that not happen with the crypto space? And, are you willing to back a horse in these races, or as a company, as BitPay, do you just sit back and see what floats to the top?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what we do. We sit back. We really try and provide shovels, whatever. And I won't use the term, necessarily gold rush, but again, we see where try and see where the market's going and adapt to that. I mean, we used to be in only Bitcoin. We only accept Bitcoin. And fees got crazy. We added Bitcoin Cash. We saw users starting getting very involved in Ethereum, and then of course the stable tokens. So BitPay itself, there's probably not going to be a horse we back, but we'll definitely watch the market. And as honestly as you said, the best technology does not always rise to the top. Network effects are really powerful. Having great developers like globally is so powerful. And look, you see that behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. And low fees and scalability and transaction throughput are great. But if you don't get a wide swath of users and not even just consumers, again, go back to the businesses and merchants. I'd love to see more projects focused on that aspect. It's gonna be who wins the network effects. And then everyone's gonna be like, well, I can't do anything with this other token, and it's just sitting there. All right, I'll go back into this other one. But at the same time, it's so easy to switch between those tokens. Who knows what small little use cases each one of these projects, but I do believe long term there will be, our top two to five workhorses in terms of what they're used for and the use cases that they provide, that are going to really float to the top and dominate the market over the years. And it's going to be hard to unseat them too.
Yeah, certainly, as with any market, as it gets more secure, more regulated, more established, and as you say, those network effects, it's just
it's one of the hardest things difficult to beat.
It certainly is. Although, as we've seen already in this particular bull run market, some interesting players have floated towards the top, at least in the short term. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and look, that just shows how many different use cases and user personas there are. I only care about low fees. Well, I care more about decentralization. Well, I care more about the founder of it. So, and people will maintain those beliefs and what's important to them. So I think there's a ton of room for a ton of projects, and they'll all coexist. But there definitely will be some big ones that really apply to the core financial use cases of the world.
I think very important view to address which floats to the top, how they do it, what they go about it. But Sean, I want to sort of ask a question that gets asked commonly, but I want to ask it in a slightly different way to see if we can maybe get an interesting or a novel approach to it, which is something that we're trying to think about, here at Reimagine, something that's very entwined with the ethos of ourselves. I think so many in this space is getting the next, let's touch a number to it, next 1 billion people into the crypto space. Now, as we've already discussed, this bull run we're seeing right now seems to be doing a pretty good job of marketing itself on behalf of everyone. But that being said, what needs to be done? What needs to be done to get those billion people in? Is it the big marketing campaign? Is it development of the best tech? Is it the best UI? Is it those merchants you keep mentioning, seeing we accept, Bitcoin and whatever else accepted here? What is that key thing? Or is it a number of things, and what are they in your mind?
It's the financial institutions, it's the big merchants, it's the businesses. When PayPal took that jump and said, we're going to allow buy selling within the app, and they've already talked about releasing it to all their Venmo users and bringing it to PayPal in Europe, I believe. When you think of on different continents and the big providers, of some of those services, I think like M-Pesa, like in Africa, you think of these large corporations and enterprises that are so deeply intertwined in users. Look, if they embrace it and they accept it, or even like in a phased approach, that's at least the quickest and easiest what's going to get the next billion. Of course, there are ways to, and as more people hear about it and, I can make money on it, maybe come for the money, stay for the technology, I think, which happens to a lot of people, honestly. As price rises, that's always going to bring more people in. Everyone wants to increase their standard of living. Everyone wants to have, a little bit better chance at a better life with that. So I think that's going to be a driver, as asset value increases. But, and governments, when governments do release, say, central bank digital currencies, or maybe some of these smaller economies are like, hey, we have trouble keeping up with, our fiat currency against some of these big players. Maybe someone and there has been some small news and rumors about different countries talking about Bitcoin being their of choice, currency in their country. I mean, that's something that, there's tens and hundreds of millions of users. Right. So it's either going to be like a couple just massive players, that are going to say, hey, let's dive into it, as PayPal did. They really helped lead the charge, them and Square. And then also as the asset keeps growing in value, it gets people's attention. They learn about it, they get into it. That's a little bit slower and more gradual, but you see the giant leaps when these big players get involved. That's going to be the next one. And I don't know if that's a novel approach, like you see people talking about. I think, honestly, better decentralization or lower fees or higher throughput and fast transactions, that's great. But that's not going to get the next billion users who are like, hey, I should hold like 50% of my net worth in that, or maybe all my net worth in that. But, but when a bank says, hey, or like TD, Ameritrade, investment things, Western countries, or again, like Safaricom, I think, is so big in Africa. If they were like, hey, we're going to enable our users to interact with that, suddenly, boom, that's all on board, or a country says it. So I don't think people talk a lot about, they talk a little bit about it, but I'd love to see more projects and protocols like really focus on how do we work with governments, how do we work with enterprises, and make it valuable to them. The crypto sphere is so great at incentives and game theory and optimizing wins for all parties. You have to think about the large businesses, the financial institutions, and that if you really want to see a quick billion people added to the network.
Yeah, it's a powerful point, and one I think you raised fairly. I think a little bit too much of crypto innovation is focused inside. It's focused on sort of internal back and forth. So my transaction speed's better than your transaction speed, But making those bridges, making that accessibility, I think you're bang on
First mile and last mile. First mile and last mile are the keys. How do I get my dollars, whether I'm a business or a bank or person, into it? And how do I then use that crypto in the real world to fund a project, to build my house, to hold my mortgage in? First and last miles are the key problems, in my opinion, going forward.
100%. Got to open up those bottlenecks. All right, Sean, I could keep chatting to you all day. There's so much to go over here, but let's wrap it up. But before we do, I want you to give a chance. BitPay, a shout out. What are you guys doing? Any big announcements, innovations, things coming down the pipeline you want to share with the audience?
Look out again for the ability to for mass payouts. The creator economy globally, remote work is so big. Payments infrastructure is hard. If you want to receive crypto in a different, unique way versus just going onto an exchange and purchasing it, tell your company, hey, I want to get paid in it, or I want to receive bonuses in it. Tell them to talk to BitPay. That's going to be a big focus. And then, again, that last mile up to legacy networks, but how do I spend my crypto? How do I use it in shop where, we've got a MasterCard in the US rolling out to other regions. Again, if you want to interact with crypto and don't want, to have to go and connect your bank account, etc., tell your business, tell your employer, hey, you should think about, crypto and talk to BitPay. And that's the stuff that we're going to keep focusing on in 2021.
Certainly sounds like some exciting stuff. Sean, thanks so much for speaking with us. And for everyone watching, make sure you stay with us at Reimagine. So much more quality content coming down the pipeline. Looking at the scope of history, this stuff is definitely not to miss.